Hello, welcome to
The shed,
the shed.
and also creating your best years
So we're talking now about day three in the
of our
of
amazing
our amazing
4-day retreat that's going to happen in November 2023.
yeah. So we're talking about creating your best life. Creating your best life. It's a 4 day. We're going to look at who you want to be. We're going to give you practical ways of if there's any blocks or anything
Yeah.
that you need.
So we've done. So by the time you got to day 3, you've looked at how you've got here.
We're going to wake
What
up on
blocks you
day
want to get rid of.
three.
Day 3.
We're going to be shiny. So on day 3,
Yeah.
it is.
It's about. We're talking about going forward and filling the gap with joy. So what happens is, and I'm sure we've all been there, we've done courses, we've looked at things where you identify things, you think you've got rid of them, it's great, you're never going to deal with that again, and then suddenly you find a few years later, bloody hell, it's still rooting around in there.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is, if you kind of get rid of anything, you see, if you kind of leave your luggage behind, what happens is there's a gap there, and if you don't kind of fill it, it'll kind of creep back.
It can fill itself. It's a bit like parting of the
That's
waves
right.
on
It'll
the
kind
water.
of come back. So so we're looking at what are the things that you've decided to that don't serve you anymore and that you're going to jettison. But now what we're looking at, let's put into that space something really exciting about how it's going to create your best life for moving forward from that point on.
It is interesting. I was talking to somebody recently that having to exactly do that. They were having to have this big movement. So they had a big, not a loss, but they had to lose this stuff. But they weren't able to move forward. And it was really interesting how the grief and the overwhelmingness, even though it had to move and change.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of if you move house, you're selling something, and that might be great if it's very small and you want to go to a big one or whatever. But for some people, they have to move for some reason. So sometimes it might be moving house to move to a new district, or being older, have to move down. But you've always got somewhere to go to. But it's almost like if you actually just get rid of that and you live in no man's land, it just wrong foots you, and your mind and your subconscious would just go, this doesn't feel great.
Let's put it all back.
Let's just get the old stuff and put it back in. So it's a very natural thing. It's not a weakness of mind.
No.
So we're going to be doing a few workshops that day that are about practically looking forward and creating that space.
And kind of visualizing it and looking at the things that you want to make happen and kind of concentrating on those kind of different things. And I think it is interesting because, when I look back at my own kind of life journey, it was, consciously or unconsciously, in my 40s, I started belly dancing. Hadn't done it before in my life, had kind of been interested in it, and it just kind of happened, it seemed. In my 50s, started putting on art exhibitions and all those kind of things. And then in my 60s, I remember asking my husband for my 60th birthday, he bought me an electronic drum kit because I had this realization that when I was a teenager, I always wanted to be a drummer in a rock band. And as I said, my very specific thing was I wanted to be able to play and music.
You are not old enough to go into some of like the old bands. You can't.
Yes, that's right.
You're too young for Mick Jagger's band. You're too young for Rod Stewart.
Thank God for that. What I'm looking at is there are other groups I'd like to join that are better. But it was like that whole thing of, so you can you don't have to be the same person you always were for the rest of your life. And this is a really powerful time. Yes. So we're looking at this, a really powerful time. It's really exciting. You're planning for kind of creating your best years. At that point, if you're kind of in your 40s and that kind of thing and looking forward, you've still got another 40 years to go. Don't just accept or put up with. No, this is about just filling those kind of gaps. And
I think we've got a bit of space that day. That if there is, I think we mentioned before, it's quite dynamic, so we'll respond to what people are looking at.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we have some space that day that if there are things like physical problems, people are in menopause, or people are fearful of menopause, and it's like where we cover that in some previous days, this is the time to actually have real solutions to things. So if it's very esoteric, an idea, or if it's very practical, or if it's even on a physical level that this is stopping me moving on, we'll come up with some ways in doing it.
And the space in that day when you can have the opportunity to have a one-to-one with
Yeah.
either of us, whichever kind of works for you, whatever it is that you want to deal with. And if you don't want to do that, then
If there's space for other things.
unfortunately you'll have to go to a spa or go for a walk on the coast path or go to a swim.
Certainly with Alison that day, you do a lot of your sort of inspirational work, your walk, talk the walk, walk the talk.
We might do that. We might do that if you would like to do that.
But there's things that we have in mind. I'm much more clinical, much more homeopathic, much more hormonal with the approach. And it might be that other people have, actually it's a different thing that people have. But this is the opportunity to practically again fill your life with a way of going forward and not stopping it. And that evening,
the place where we are, they've got this fantastic opportunity where we can sit around the fire pit, and they said they bring us their special hot chocolate.
Can we have the hot brandy to go with it?
I think they could probably handle that. I think they probably have that available.
You know. So there's going to be a fire pit. It's going to be out by the sea. It's going to be lovely, and it is that discover yourself and have that really lovely spa break with other women. That by then on day 3, hopefully we'll get to know each other quite well.
And it is about joy, because we need a bit more of that in our lives, don't we?